Hey, Katie.
Welcome to
Learn Real Good
a science and comedy
podcast.
We did it.
We did it. Why? We don't normally intro the show that way, do we?
No, you know what? This is our second recording for the season, and it's been clear we don't remember how it starts.
We've never had a formula for how it starts.
No, we totally did. We totally did.
Well, now we don't.
We've thrown it out. It's the fourth season. Can you think of a season, a TV show that a few seasons in just like threw out some sort of semblance of it?
Yeah, Battlestar.
What did it throw out?
The traveling in space. They just sit on a crappy planet. They're like, oh, it's an exciting space adventure. No, we sit here on a crappy planet.
Okay, Vinny is shitting on New Caprica, and I will not stand for it.
I'll do it. I don't
They
like it.
needed a break from space travel. The one that comes to mind for me is the intro song to New Girl, which was a Zooey Deschanel sitcom. And she had written this cute little song to intro the show.
Okay.
And after a few seasons, they just got rid of it for a crappy electric guitar rendition of it. It was just
weird.
Yeah, uniformly panned.
Oh. Did they go back to it in the next
No.
season? They just stuck with it for the rest of the run.
The benefit of the second one was that it was mercifully short.
Okay.
It was just like a throwaway thing.
Okay.
That's like the first thing that comes to mind for throwing out a previously established pattern. But following the great tradition of New Girl and Battlestar, here we are.
Learn real good. Yeah.
So if you're new to the show, this is a science comedy podcast where we interview grad students about their research, which is the best part of the show. But before that, you have to put up with about 10 minutes of us talking. And congratulations to you. You've made it through about 2 minutes.
I think people will enjoy it.
Absolutely. They also love self-deprecating humor. Check. Are you ready for science facts? Facts.
I got so many science facts.
Whoa, we only have time for one, Vin.
All right, then I'll give you one. Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
Okay, I'll go first. Yeah, I think I usually make you go first.
Sure.
And that's not fair. And I want to be a good friend. And here I go.
All right, wow.
Vinny, what's a thymus?
Thymus.
Do you
It's
know
a
what
body
thymus
part,
is?
isn't it?
It is a body part.
Okay, is it a part of the brain or is that a thalamus?
You're thinking thalamus for
Okay,
sure.
a
Thymus
thymus.
is not in your brain.
Is it a gland?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay,
yeah,
it secretes hormones, I guess?
No, it's not really. It's
like
gland
it's
adjacent.
like a spare liver.
It's not a spare liver.
No? The thymus.
No. Maybe you've heard of specific cells from the thymus. Have you heard of T cells?
No.
You've never heard of T cells?
No.
Oh, I prepared this thinking you'd know T cells and not
I don't know what a T
thymus.
cell is.
Okay,
No, I know red blood cells.
Yeah.
And white blood cells.
Good.
I don't know T cells. Oh, wait, are those the ones that attack?
They participate in immune response.
Okay.
Yes.
So maybe I have heard of them.
Okay. So yes, the thymus, it's great that you don't really know it exists because a lot of people think it's not very important.
Okay.
So the thymus is a organ that is in your chest. It's
Okay.
between your lungs. It sort of covers your heart in the front. And it's really important pre-puberty. So when you're little and growing up, it's really important because it produces T cells, T for thymus, which are a part of your immune response. And they're good guys that'll help you fend off the bad guys who try to invade your body.
I like those.
But as you age, as you go into adulthood, it becomes less and less important. In fact, it stops making T cells.
Oh.
And your body relies largely on what are called memory T cells. So it sort of has a way of making more, but they're not made in the thymus. It's the easiest way of explaining it. And in fact, the thymus gets replaced by largely fatty tissue. So people have been going around thinking that the thymus is pretty much useless in adulthood.
Well, I certainly did after that introduction.
You're convinced?
Yeah.
And in fact, people just chop it out. They'll cut it out if you have an abnormal growth. Get rid of it. Don't eat it. Or even sometimes surgeons will remove it just because it's in the way of a chest procedure for something more important. Well, what do you think I'm going to tell you with this sort of build-up, Vinny? I'm predictable. What do you think what kind of a hot fact?
The thymus is good,
well,
even into adulthood.
So we still don't know what it might be doing. For all we know.
What kind of fact is this?
But I'm getting to it. Okay, there's a nugget of interest coming up.
I can't wait.
This new study, the reason for me talking about the thymus today, looked at 2,300 adults who newly had, maybe we should make this a video podcast because the arms
you are
are
gesturing
going nuts.
all over the place.
I know, I think it comes out my voice.
Yes, it does. I like it.
So there's 2,300 people had their thymuses removed in adulthood, and their rates of death and cancer in the next few years went up dramatically.
Oh.
3 times more likely to die in the next few years.
Whoa.
Twice as likely to develop cancer in the
Okay.
next 2 years. So we don't know why, but it's strong evidence that perhaps the thymus is doing something.
That's
in adulthood.
bananas.
So maybe don't throw out your
Don't
everyone at
throw
home.
out your
If
thymus.
you have a thymus in your hand right
Yes.
now, you are walking to that compost bin.
I don't need this anymore. I'm an adult.
No,
My T cells are memory cells now.
get back there.
I gotta put
the
it back.
thymus
Put your
back
thymus
in.
yeah.
You may need it.
Yeah.
We don't know why yet, but I'm sure there's gonna be follow-up studies to see
Wow.
what could it possibly be doing. So they found other things too. So the people who had it removed, who were in that bracket that developed cancer shortly after, they found that their T cells were less able to identify trespassers compared to T cells of someone who still had their thymus. So it
It's still
seems
doing
like it's
something
still
in there.
doing something in there.
Still doing something.
Exactly. So, more studies to come, but perhaps we should stop just throwing away these
Don't throw away your thymus.
I'm gonna
You're
get
an
a
adult.
t-shirt.
Yeah.
Stop littering thymuses, people.
Wow.
Keep them in there. So now you know you have a thymus. didn't know.
I'm not gonna throw it out now. That's for sure. I'm gonna keep it.
For those people, nowadays with the surgeries, people are removing buccal fat in their
Sure.
cheeks. I could see the thymus if it's become a fatty organ
Yeah,
getting
like I need
tossed
to
for
lose
vanity.
some weight. I'm gonna have my thymus removed. I'm an adult. I don't need it. Guess what? You do.
We don't know why.
We don't know
ask.
why. Don't ask. Yeah, it's probably doesn't weigh much either.
Yeah, of all things to remove.
Well, okay. Well, that's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
it really does have a function. Great.
Yeah. So that's the whole fact.
I love it.
It was a long fact.
No, I love
a
it.
fact nonetheless.
Still a fact, and
Yeah.
it was scientific. And
Check.
you may have saved someone's life. So good on you.
I'm the hero of this
You're the
study.
hero of the story.
Great. Vinny, do you have a science fact
I
for me?
do. Well, I have some bad news.
Is
This-
it a
it's
negative
bad
about
news.
thymuses?
No, it's not about thymuses. Did you know cars are sexist?
People who buy cars, the cars themselves?
No, the cars themselves.
Well, the cars don't have any autonomy or choice in the matter.
Well, here's the thing.
Oh, no.
Cars?
Yeah.
Women who are in car accidents
Yes.
are 73% more likely than men to be injured and 17% more likely to die in a car accident
Wow.
than men.
So that does not make cars sexist.
Cars are super
No,
sexist.
the people who design them for men the same way they design medicine for men. Women
Correct.
get forgotten completely. Interesting.
So here's what they've noticed and they've
Okay.
recently looked into is you do a study on 70,000 patients who've been trapped in vehicles and found that women were more frequently trapped than men, 73% more likely to be injured, and 17% more likely to die.
Wow.
Now, why is this? Here's the big thing. Safety testing is done on what?
Male crash test dummies.
Correct. Crash test dummies are designed. They're prescribed. There's like a certain weight, height, size. Guess what that average weight, height, size is?
The average man.
Correct. And
for
so
Christ's sake.
because there are some, there's like one body that prescribes a female bodied, I'm talking about sex here, not gender, but one female bodied crash test dummy. But it's not real. It's not actually, it's the size of a 12-year-old girl. The average 12-year-old girl
says a lot.
is the only female crash test dummy that's used for testing.
Wow.
And so there's a new movement to introduce a female crash test dummy to improve the results of these things. And there is a design out there, but it's not been put into use in the standards.
That's really interesting. So do you have like further details of like the type, like what is it about being an inch shorter on average or whatever? Like what's hitting you in the face?
So here's the general things are females have more injuries to the spine and the hips because they have broader hips, wider pelvises, and
Wow.
they sit closer to the steering wheel because their arms are a little bit shorter.
Wow.
And so all of these things add up to being more likely to be injured if you're not testing and designing around not just the crash test dummies for that are male average, but also you have to do a female study.
So I wonder what the solution is, just to sort of do half of your tests or do tests on varied bodies and take the average for what
Yes.
would be best for most, considering number of people with those bodies.
Exactly. That's right.
Like you should test what it's like on someone who's 7'6", but not a lot of people are that tall.
Right.
So you'd have to weight that lower in terms of priority.
Yeah. But however, like 51% of the population
Yeah.
is going to be
no,
female.
for sure that needs to be considered. Oh, that's really interesting. Now that makes me angry. You've put me in an angry headspace.
I know.
That's not great.
It's cars, man. They're sexist.
And how? Okay, well, the cars aren't sexist. Let's be clear. The people designing cars are sexist.
Sure.
Now, how did it take us this long to figure this out?
No one looked at it because why? It was women, unfortunately. Just like so many things we're discovering that scientific testing is always done with men as the default.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always apply.
Because women are just men, but more complicated and moody, right?
That's what I've heard. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a whole movement now in the sciences to undo this sex bias.
Wow. Well, I hope they do something about that. I hope they do it soon because I don't have a car. I've never bought a car, but now I want to buy one.
Well, you do travel in a car.
To make sure it's designed for a woman. I do travel in cars, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so...
That's it really made me angry.
I know. I didn't like reading it, but I wanted to share it with people. It's so pervasive. It's so insidious and subtle. Yeah. But it's always out there. Like, we're going to have to do a lot of work in the sciences and engineering to really root out this kind of unconscious bias.
And we're going to do that because we're the heroes of this story too.
We did it. I saved a life. You saved a life. Thymuses and car design.
We should call it a day.
Yeah, I want to meet our guest.
Oh, that's right. The best part of our show is coming up now.
I'm really excited.
I'm excited.
All right, let's say hello here. We're going to read this intro.
Good for you.
Saif Nayani is a master's student in the Greece lab of pest management at Simon Fraser University, where he also did his undergraduate degree in ecology, evolution, and conservation biology. His research is to find attractive chemicals for stable flies, a pest of cattle that feeds on their blood, and in the hopes of developing traps for them. His hobbies include watching movies, TV, and playing poker, and taking his half dog, half potato for walks. He's also 25 years old and still lives with his mother. He wrote this. And say hi to Saif.
Hello.
Hey, Saif, welcome to the show.
Welcome to Learn Real Good.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is really cool.
Oh, we're so excited to chat with you. Your research sounds super, super duper cool.
Very cool.
Thank you.
So, Saif, tell us about stable flies. What's going on there?
Yeah. Well, stable flies are awful. They are insects that hang out on farms, particularly around cattle. And what they like to do is similar to how mosquitoes like to track down humans and bite us and drink our blood. Stable flies like to do the same with cows. Mm. So if you've ever, driven past a farm and you've seen cows just like surrounded by flies, there's probably quite a few different species there, but one of them is most likely going to be stable flies. Mm. So what they do is they land on cows, they bite them, really, really painful bites, and then drink their blood. And over time, all of that lost blood means that they have less energy for things like milk production, growth, and development. And so it leads to like lost weight. And I mean, kind of worst of all, just a whole lot of pain for the cows.
Yeah.
Because it's not pleasant. Yeah.
That's crazy to think that a fly taking blood like a mosquito could actually lead to even measurable changes in health, right? Because we just think of them as being annoying. We don't think of them having sort of any impact, but I guess they're getting bit a ton.
Yeah, like hundreds of these things on them all the time. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oof.
Yeah, well, I could see why it would be good to get rid of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so tell us about your research. Your research is looking for chemicals that these guys like?
Yeah, so kind of in a few different contexts. So I guess kind of the one of the big ones is I'm looking for any chemicals that might be given off by microbes that are living on cow skin. Because there's bacteria that lives on our skin, on cow skin, on pretty much every animal skin. And these are usually harmless bacteria. They don't really, do anything bad. But what may be happening is stable flies are able to pick up on any smells that these bacteria are giving off. And that tells them, hey, there's a cow here. I'm going to go and bite it. So,
wow.
That's really interesting. So what made you think that they could like sniff it out? I mean, obviously, if there's these flies that like to be on this animal, they have to find it somehow. So maybe it's through detecting a chemical. But do we know of other other bugs that do that?
Yeah, yeah. So this was kind of inspired by research that was done with mosquitoes on humans.
Hmm.
So it's been
Oh.
shown that depending on what your skin microbiome is, that can make you more attractive to mosquitoes. So if you've ever wondered why, like, you get bit by a ton of mosquitoes while the person standing next to you is totally fine, it may be because you have a slightly different skin microbiome
Hmm.
than that other person.
Wow, I'm gonna
Yeah,
trade microbiomes with that person.
yeah, yeah.
So do you think so if you found out, and we'll get to what some of your findings are so far, but
Sure.
if you were to find like E. coli B, like a specific microbe was like super attractive to these bad bugs, do you think there's a way of like changing the cow's diet to minimize them? Like do you think diet affects the things on the outside of your body like it does on the inside of your body?
It's possible to kind of change the diet of or what you're feeding your cows in order to make it so that there's fewer of those like really attractive microbes on
Mm,
wherever, because there's also going to be lots of those in cow feces, which is where the flies lay their eggs.
Hmm.
But I think that perhaps like an alternative way, or the way that myself and some of my lab mates are trying to figure out, is to use that information to kind of develop some traps and see like, okay, so we know that this particular chemical, the flies love it. So let's just put a bunch of
Hmm.
that into this
ah,
trap, and then the flies will ideally go for it and not the actual cows. And then, hey, problem solved.
right. So like a little bit of cheese for the mouse.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
So if I've never been to a farm, Safe, would I have ever seen a stable fly? Like, do they only go to like farmy places, or are they around us right now?
Most likely, they're going to be pretty much isolated in like farm areas because
Mm,
their primary hosts are going to be things like cows. They'll
Hmm.
also go for like horses and things like that. But for the most part, it'll be in that environment. Having said that, I have heard of reports and stories of people like camping and getting bit by them
Ugh.
nowhere near
oof.
farms. There's
Ouch.
also a lot of studies that have been done, I think, down in Florida, like not anywhere near farms, and yet somehow there's just a bunch of stable flies around. So
Interesting.
Oh
it's
man.
likely they're finding alternative hosts, maybe like,
Alligators.
yeah,
Armadillos.
yeah.
Something. House cats. Now, stable flies, do they like? I'm picturing just like a house fly. Am I on like the right ballpark?
Yeah. They're about the same size. They look very similar. Some of the differences between stable flies and a lot of the flies that you'll typically see are in like their mouth parts.
Okay.
So flies like a really common fly that you'll see around, those like kind of shiny green looking
Mm-hmm.
flies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those ones have those are blowflies. And so they have like spongy mouth parts, which means they're
Okay.
basically doing like duck face the whole time,
Oh.
right?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas stable flies and other biting insects like mosquitoes as well will have like a proboscis. So like
Okay.
basically just a big needle for a mouth, and then that they use to both, cut into whatever animal they're feeding on, as well as drink their blood.
Wow.
What a life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a great one.
I wouldn't trade my teeth for a proboscis. Just put it out there.
What about your thymus?
No, not anymore. Last week maybe I would have. So Safe, what did you find? Have you found specific chemicals that they like?
Yeah, so we haven't yet isolated exactly which chemicals they're after,
Hmm.
but we do know of a few bacterial species that kind of did the
Ooh.
trick for them.
Okay.
Um, so there was a few different species of Staphylococcus, which is
Hmm.
a super common skin microbe. So it's kind of like not super surprising that that was the one that they're going after. And so what we did was basically swabbed a cow skin, put that swab on some agar, grew that overnight, and then we had basically a big cocktail of a whole bunch of bacteria that was then like isolated out, and then we identified it, and it was a whole process. But ultimately, we ended up with individual bacteria that we could then present to the flies and say like, hey, do you like this one? Nope. Okay. Do you like this one? Nope. Okay. Do you like this one? Until eventually they were like, hey, we like this Staphylococcus species.
Wow. So you basically did focus group for like Axe body spray for stable flies.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right. Okay, I get this.
So I want to. This is too interesting. How did you conduct this taste test? Like if I'm doing this with Vinny and I'm testing different Axe body sprays, which is an experiment we may have to do in the future. I could tell from his facial expressions, his wincing, his moving away that he does not like something.
Or moving closer.
If you like it.
Yeah.
So how do you do that with a fly? Is it that like how much time they spend on a plate, or do you have a plate with a bunch of bacteria and you look at which zone it's in? Like how do you know what the
they
fly
fill out
likes?
a survey after?
Yeah, we have these things called olfactometers, which is a fancy way of saying it's a fancy way of saying plastic box.
Okay.
And it has like 3 sections in it. And in the middle section, we put like 20 flies. And in one of the side sections, we have a plate of bacteria. And then in the other side section, we have an agar plate as our control. And so we put everything in there, leave it for like 24 hours, come back, and then count up how many flies are on each side. So if there's a whole bunch of them now on the bacteria, that means they're attracted
They're into it. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, this is amazing.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so how many different like microbes did you have to test?
We ID'd something like 40 different species. Whoa. I think we got through about half of them before we found like an attractive one.
Okay.
And then didn't bother with the other ones because laziness.
Yeah.
Were you able to sort of go back to like looking at the actual cows and be like, oh yeah, I remember Fred the cow was just riddled with stable flies and he was coated in staphylococcus, so that makes sense now.
Right.
Like, were you able to sort of pair it with real cow experience compared to the petri dishes?
That's a great idea. We didn't do that, but I mean that's a kind of a perfect follow-up study to kind of verify the results. Is like go out into the field, look for the cows that are getting attacked more than others, and then hey, do these ones also have high amounts of staphylococcus?
Well, it sounds like we have a project, Saif. We'll talk after the show.
Amazing. Yeah.
So I know, Saif, there was a study that came out a few years ago, this really cool study with zebras. This will come back to cows. And looked at which zebras would be or it was looking at zebra stripes, a potential reason for zebra stripes being, you know where I'm going with this, that it the stripes made it harder for the insects to sort of land on them. Do you know of any sort of coloring mechanism in cows with stable flies? Like maybe that's why they're spotted.
Striped cows.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, striped cows.
We'd have to call them zebra cows? Zows?
Zows. But do you know of any sort of relationship with color and fly landing on cows?
Yeah, well, there's so actually a couple things. So regarding coloration and basically visual cues in general, that's another like huge area of research in stable flies. In fact, some other members of my lab also look into that. So there's going to be a huge visual component to it. Not to like shoot myself in the foot or anything, but I think it might even be more important than the chemical stuff. Is the visual stuff.
Double whammy. You got a double whammy.
Yeah. And I think, a part of that is flies have these like gigantic eyes and antennae, which they use for chemical reception. Their antennae are rather small. So it's probably more a visual thing than a chemical thing, but I didn't know that when I started my degree. So let's just pretend.
Yeah.
I mean, you still found a pattern, right?
Yeah.
You found a pattern through all the other noise and other factors. So it's doing something.
I mean, once you start getting those fake cows with the coloration, you can still smear them with staphylococcus. And the flies will be like, I've hit the jackpot. Yeah. But little do they know.
Related to that, there was a kind of a follow-up study to the one you were just mentioning, Katie, where they literally painted cows, like they striped with black and white stripes. And I think it was with tsetse, which is another biting fly. And I think they showed that when you have a cow that's striped like a zebra, the flies don't really go for it. So it's
amazing.
So it's coming. We just need a couple mutations and a few thousand years. Striped cows.
Yeah.
Invest in striped cows now.
Yeah. Get in on the ground floor.
When I go camping, can I wear like a striped suit?
Yeah,
or
like
mosquitoes.
Beetlejuice?
Yeah, like Beetlejuice. He probably doesn't get.
Like Beetle.
He doesn't get bit by
Hey,
mosquitoes.
what's his name?
Beetle.
Whoa.
Juice.
There's
Oh.
something there, guys.
Yeah, maybe that's what you're going to discover, some beetle juice.
So, I don't know much about bacteria, Safe. I don't. I've heard of staph infections,
Yeah.
and I'm assuming that's related to Staphylococcus. What are bacteria really making different chemicals that you could smell them out? Well, not us, but they could.
Yeah, yeah, they do. It's
Wow.
it's kind of crazy to think about though when like the amount of bacteria on like a petri dish that you can very easily smell, that's not going to be the same that's on that
Yeah.
same area of a cow,
Right.
right? So the smell, it should be like way more dilute, and yet they're able to pick up on these cues, which is pretty insane when you think about it. But yeah, and they also have quite a different range in both what types of chemicals they emit, but also the amounts of chemicals. So for instance, one of the like parts of that study was we were thinking ammonia was a big factor in attracting the flies. Like that was probably one of the chemicals that they're going after. So what we did was we kind of measured the amounts of ammonia being released by all those like 40 some species, and it was like all over the place. Some of them had like none, some of them had like dangerously high amounts, and
Okay.
it was just like crazy. So yeah, it's really amazing how much diversity there is in
Yeah.
the types of chemicals that are released.
Whew. It's a
Yeah.
very cool study. What
Yeah.
were some of this sounds really, whenever I hear people like molecular biologists, I'm like, this sounds way harder than what I did. What were some of the biggest challenges that are part of this project that you did?
The all of it.
Yeah,
the-
that sounds
yeah.
right.
I think early on, one of the big challenges was separating all of the individual bacteria.
Ooh.
So,
Yeah,
like,
how do you do that?
you just kind of take a very fine, sterile toothpick. It's literally toothpicks. Very, very high science stuff.
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
doing.
yeah.
You just take toothpicks and very carefully try to pick out one. It's like a claw machine almost. Try to pick
Wow.
out one individual bacterial colony on this like kind of soupy plate that you think you can only get that one. And then you put that on a new plate
Okay.
and then grow it, and then come back the next day and find out that you accidentally took like 6 different species, and then you do it again. Yeah.
Wow, like a really gross claw machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
With no real prize at the end, except frustration.
Yeah, that sounds super challenging. Wow.
But I should give a lot of credit here to some of my lab mates who are like molecular biology geniuses. They are like, yeah, they did so much of that molecular work, and it wouldn't have been possible without them. So yeah, well, the credit needs to go there.
Big ups to the lab.
This thing on?
Yes.
Oniric.
Notes to Oniric, Day 1, by Teffer Troy, doctoral candidate, Alternative Narrative Traditions, Université de Montréal, October 12, 683.
Oniric.
Hello, Deirdre. I hope you're well. I'm recording this now because today's a big day. I'm meeting with a talking wolf after lunch. I'm a bit nervous about it.
Oniric.
A flame that rides the winds of worlds. A flame that seeks a single torch. The torch burns bright. The torch burns out. The flame remains and rides anew.
Oniric.
It's a dream quest. It's a grail quest. It's a fever dream quest.
Oniric.
Just say hi. Please. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it.
For fuck's sake. Hi, Deirdre. Hope you're well. You're well rid of this idiot.
Oniric.
In the Pod Cavern, and wherever you get your podcasts.
So you're doing a master's in pest management. What are some other, is your lab all focused on stable flies, or are there other pests that are big bads in your group?
Yeah, there's a few different ones. So the lab has been running for like 20, 30 years. And over that time, there's been like all sorts of pests that they've dealt with. Right now, there's a lot of stable fly stuff going. There's horn flies, which are similar to stable flies. There's a lot of stuff on ants. carpenter ants, fire ants, things like that. There's bed bugs, which are always fun. Mosquitoes, ticks, all sorts of really
all the
fun
baddies.
things. Yeah.
When I was a kid, bed bugs were like not real, right? They were so rare in urban centers. No, we'd say, good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. And you'd have to ask what the hell's a bed bug, because they were not part of the conversation.
It's true. It's like
Maybe
a leprechaun.
It's also because I was 5. But do you know why? I don't know, this isn't your bug of choice. Or anyone's. Why are bed bugs so bad now?
Yeah, why are they so hot right now?
Why are bed bugs so hot?
I'm not sure. I imagine it must have something to do with just all of the just the amount of movement back and forth between places. And I know travel is a big one, where sometimes they infest like a hotel and someone goes and stays there, and then they bring them home and it spreads and it's a whole thing. But you're absolutely right though. Like, it even feels like a few years ago it wasn't like a huge thing, and then now all of a sudden it's like they're everywhere.
Yeah, burn your clothes after a trip.
Yeah.
I'm on What Is This Bug subreddit, and it's 99% bed bugs, 1% house caterpillars.
Wow. People don't identify a house caterpillar.
If you've never seen one, they look insane.
I mean, they look insane even if you have seen one.
Are there some like hot new pests on the horizon that you guys know about?
Yeah, what are the pests we should look out for?
Top 3 hot new pests.
You won't believe number 5.
It's kind of like the hot pest of the season this year. Everyone's talking about mosquitoes, which is kind of like always. Ticks are a big thing,
right?
Those are kind of the constants, and I mean it makes sense. Mosquitoes are the deadliest animal in the world. They they do kill more people than anyone or any other animal. So there are some of those like constant pests that keep staying at the forefront. In terms of like newer ones, I think that nowadays, especially with more and more cannabis farming, there's more interest in pests of specifically cannabis. So we have some work in our lab on root aphids. So again, pests of like cannabis plants. So also obviously a very economically important.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's wild.
So now that you've found some bacteria that the stable flies like to sniff out, we don't know exactly the chemicals, but we know the sort of bacteria they seem to be liking. Is the next step, like, are you going to be working on designing those traps, or is that like someone else in the future?
That will most likely be someone else in the future. I tried a few field trials with some kind of like with the bacteria and some other kind of ways to maybe try something or to get something going out in the real world. They didn't go great, which is fine. That's part of science, it happens, whatever. But yeah, I think that this is kind of one small piece, very, very small piece of what will become a much larger puzzle for someone to hopefully solve down the road. Hopefully very soon.
What do they do now for stable flies?
There's a lot of spraying, which is, effective, but of course has a lot of peripheral effects.
Right.
And also they've been known to develop resistance to them. There's a lot of like sanitary measures, like clean up everything, which is very hard to do on a farm when you have like 50 cows there that are, pooping everywhere and providing a lot of oviposition or egg laying sites for the flies. So there's really not too much in terms of like effective, long-term management strategies, which is unfortunate, but hopefully we can change that soon.
So, Saif, you're working on a master's in pest management, but your undergrad was in ecology. How did you get into pests?
Yeah. So in my last semester as an undergraduate student, I started volunteering in this lab, the Grease Lab. I was working on European fire ants at the time, which are, I still am terrified of insects. So that was terrific.
Wow, good exposure therapy.
So I just did a little bit of volunteer work there. I really enjoyed being in a lab setting. I never really known that was like an option up until then. And I was like, oh, this is great. I like, even though at that time I was like washing dishes and like just helping out with like, you know, the extra tasks that the grad students didn't have enough time to do themselves. I was like, this is awesome. This is the environment I want to be in. And then thankfully my PI, Gerhard Gries, offered me a spot in the lab. And yeah, and then here I am.
And you hate bugs.
And
Yeah.
You know there's other, like, I don't want to get you kicked out of your lab, but you know there's labs that don't work on bugs.
He's trying to kill them.
it's the long con.
Yeah. Play the long game.
Yeah.
Are you like, they're fine as long as they're dead when I see them? Or like every day you see these bugs, you're like, I have to do it though.
Kind of at the beginning, it was a little bit uncomfortable. We keep so we have like a lab colony of flies, and they're in these like these cages about 45 by 45 centimeter cages, and so there's like maybe at least 1,000 of them in there.
Wow.
No.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When you need them for experiments, you got to like shove your hand into the cage and like grab them with a petri dish, and
Wow.
which like when I started was obviously terrifying, and I was like, you know, anxiety filled all the time. But you know, like you said, Vinny, it's exposure therapy, and after a while, it's like, all right, these guys are
okay.
So you've been bit by stable flies in the line of duty.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Do you have a side project looking at the change in your health and conditioning?
Just as a grad student in general.
Yeah. There's many. It's multifaceted. There's several factors. Teasing that apart is a challenge. So after your master's, Saif, what's next? Do you know what you want to do next academically?
That's a good question. I would like to start working. I don't know if I'm ready for more school right away. But I'd like to do some kind of work. I'm trying to keep the options as open as possible.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I know that it's not always, the job market out there is not always great, and it's, you know, it's good to keep the options open. But that said, you know, something in like in like teaching would be amazing. Anything that it's possible to like be creative and have a lot of fun with what you're doing is, basically I'm trying to say I want your job.
Yeah, I think it's good to know that there's like, it's not a linear path. Like you don't have to continue on to more academics if you don't want to. So many people feel like they have to, and I think there's a lot of pressure, sometimes internal, sometimes external, to like, all right, I did my master's and I might as well just do a few more and finish that PhD. But there's nothing wrong with like taking a break or leaving it entirely.
Yeah.
A wise person once told me, if you're not sure you want to do the PhD, you don't want to do the PhD.
Right.
That's good advice.
And you can always go back. If at the beginning your enthusiasm is waning.
That's a bad sign. That's a bad place to be.
3 years in, it's going to be a tough slog. And so good to hear your story too, that you like hated bugs, but you knew you liked working in a lab, and like you found a situation that works that you probably would not have thought of before entering it, right?
Yeah. It really kind of like goes to show like it's fine to like step a little bit out of your comfort zone every once in a while. Obviously, you don't want to like, you know, push yourself too far and like get into something that you're super uncomfortable with, but you know, dipping a toe in the water is always a great way to go, and it'll, you know, it opens a lot of doors for sure.
Totally.
So Saif, how did you get into biology in the first place? Like, did you grow up like in a very outdoorsy place, or just something you're curious about?
Yeah, I always enjoyed my science classes growing up, and then in high school I had, I mean, all my high school teachers were amazing. I was very lucky. But my bio teachers in particular were just like incredible, and it really, you know, made an impact. And so I was like, okay, I don't know what I want to do long term, but right now I want to learn more bio. And so going into university, I was like, okay, I'll take as many bio courses as I can. And ecology in particular was the one that after a few years was like, okay, that's what I want to study. And
ecology for me too. When I was in the med school track, because what else do you do when you don't know about jobs in the sciences? That was my situation. I was just told, you're smart, you're good at science, you must do science, you become doctor. And so that was just the plan. And in my first year, I was super interested in the ecology unit. It was the first time I'd really had a whole chunk of education just in that area. And it was actually my friends that pointed out that I was constantly talking about the ecology stuff and like, oh, and then I found out this, predator prey, Lotka Volterra. And they're like, well, that's obviously what you're interested in. And then I was like, what? And that's when I, went in that direction.
Yeah.
It's amazing because it's like you find something that you're super passionate about, and then you often trick yourself into thinking that it's not possible to like actually do that because how could I? It's so much fun. That can't be like a job. That's yeah,
that's part of the goal of this podcast. Like I see my CEGEP students, so they're like pre-university age, and they still are in that I'm good at science, I become doctor, because they don't know, like there's not TV shows that show researchers, right? You don't know of these other jobs.
There's so many different paths to go down, and the ideas that we have when we're making these decisions are so underinformed. And there's so many paths forward through STEM fields.
We're gonna change that
with one podcast at a time.
Right.
Cool. So Saif, you mentioned some of your hobbies.
Yes.
You like movies and TV. Let's get some recs. What are some hot new movies for you?
Or TV shows that you're into.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, kind of on that note, just to you guys were mentioning shows that at season 4 completely changed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Prison Break was one for me that when I got to that point was just like, oh, this is a new show now.
That's nothing to do with Prison Break.
Yeah.
I mean, when you choose a title like that,
Yeah.
how you can't, are you breaking out every time? Like at the end of the season, you got me again. Like, eventually we're moving away from the prison, right?
We gotta put him back in prison. He's gonna get out again. Not this time. Oh, he did.
I think maybe odd numbered seasons where prison break out, and then even numbered seasons they break in.
Break in.
Did they ever? I never watched Prison Break. Did they ever have to break into the prison? Because that's amazing.
I think so. I think at some point somebody was. There's just a lot of breaking of prisons going on.
I think the first season is a break out. They have to break out of the prison, and then the second season they have to break someone else out of a prison.
Right. Yeah, and then I think in like later seasons they started a small business of just prison breaking random people, or was that a different show?
Yeah, I'd never watched it.
I don't want to know because this is now the reality for me.
We're gonna pick it up.
I like a world where they just took the name too seriously and they think of other connotations of break. So like they physically break the prison. Prison break.
Yeah.
We broke it.
Or the prisoners go on strike. Like we're on break. We're taking a break from this.
Yeah, that's only got they made 4 seasons. That's impressive.
Yeah. It should just be one.
Yeah. So what other shows?
What are you watching?
Into?
Give us some recs. We love it. We love it.
We need more.
Oh, what am I watching? I just finished watching Twin Peaks. I don't know if I know that show is from like 30 years ago now, but it was great. It was great. Have you guys had the chance to watch it?
Yeah.
I haven't watched the new one.
I haven't watched the new one either. Do you recommend the new stuff too?
I haven't seen the new season because I don't have the streaming service, whatever it's on. But yeah, that was a
trip.
Weird. It was a trip.
Yeah, it's a weird show, but entertaining.
It's different.
It's definitely different. That's the word.
And you play poker. What are some of your hot poker tips?
Just you gotta know when to hold.
Yeah. Any other tip?
Gotta know when to fold.
Oh, interesting.
Top two rules of poker club.
Yeah, gotta know when to walk away and know when to run, and the rest of the lyrics of the
Kenny, I was gonna say Kenny Loggins, but it's Kenny Rogers. The other Kenny.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And let's hear about this half dog, half potato. What makes them half?
Wait, we have to guess what breed it is.
Oh,
okay.
Potato.
What's the most pit bull? Not a pit bull. What's the
bulldog?
No. What's that dog? Pug. It's a pug.
Oh, a pug.
I'm betting it's a pug.
I'm gonna go with bulldog.
Well, sorry to disappoint. I don't actually know for sure.
So it may well actually be potato.
Yeah. I think she's got like a Shih Tzu Corgi stuff in there.
Okay.
She got a haircut recently, and now she looks like a Chihuahua. So, who knows?
Little mutt.
Yeah.
She's a little mark. Yeah.
What's your dog's name? Gotta give
Mimi.
a shout out. Mimi.
And what makes Mimi a potato? They're just like a couch potato. They don't want to move.
Yeah. She's very cat-like. She likes to go to like the highest point on the couch and just like lounge there. And you look at her and she just looks like a potato with legs. There's
That's
just
amazing.
has that vibe to them. Like
potato vibes.
Yeah. Like you hold up a russet potato, hold up Mimi. I can't tell the difference.
I think we need, if you'd like to share a photo when we post
sure.
this episode, I
Yeah.
think the people need to know.
The people need to
the
know.
potato dog.
Yeah.
We can speculate on her origins.
Amazing.
Well, Saif, I think we're out of time.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing your research and your life. That was super fascinating. Good luck to you and the stable flies.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome. Thank you.
Awesome having you.
Yeah, thanks, Saif. Saif Nayani. How nice.
That was amazing.
That was really cool. You wished good luck to the stable flies.
I did. I meant good luck to you with the stable flies, not I hope the stable flies win.
Right.
In that scenario, I'm
Just to
with
clarify.
the host.
Yeah.
In most, when you're watching a nature movie, people are often cheering for the
yes.
prey.
Yes.
And I cheer for the predator.
Yes. So like when the pack of lions is chasing an antelope,
Yes.
most people would cheer for the antelope to
Correct.
get away.
I cheer for the predator because I know that the predator usually loses.
Yeah.
They're the underdog here.
Yeah.
And they're often starving.
Yeah.
They're the ones that need the win more at a population level than the prey.
true.
But when it comes to a parasite or pest, no question.
No way.
Host.
Get out.
Yeah. No. Get out of there.
Yeah. Cows all the way.
Cows. Team cows.
Team cow.
Team cows all the way. Well, Vinny, that was our show.
That's
we
our
learned
show?
a lot today
Yep.
about
Safety, sexist cars.
sexist cars,
Yeah,
and the
our
thymus
thymus.
gland.
Keep
Don't
it.
throw it out.
Keep your thymus.
Don't throw it out.
Yeah.
And of course, lots about stable flies
that's-
and the chemicals that draw them. Thanks to Saif.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That's a
lot.
That's a good episode right
I
there.
know. We learned a lot today.
Yeah, and real good.
Vinny, you want to send us out on our socials?
Yeah, if you want to follow us on social media, on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and or whatever X, Twitter.
Oh God.
Yeah, just don't
call it Twitter.
No, we're just gonna delete that account.
Don't say that. I love the remnants of Twitter.
Okay. So if you want to follow us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, or the remnants of Twitter, check us out at LRG Pod. That's LRG Pod. And if you are a grad student or know a grad student in the STEM field and would love to be a guest, email us at learnrealgoodpodcast@gmail.com. That's learnrealgoodpodcast@gmail.com.
I can't believe you remember all that.
It's in my brain. It's gonna be my final words. I'll be like, I won't recognize anybody, but I'll just keep saying that, like LRG Pod.
Well, thank you, Vinny.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you, Saif. Thank you for listening.
Thank you,
We'll see you
listeners.
next time on
Learn Real
Good. We'll work on that harmony.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.